Chapter 16. It was about a year ago that the name of the Hyena Guild became widely known. It is said that they were originally backstreet bullies who were active in the Gwanaksan area. But after awakening, stories said that they were originally from a popular group of gangsters, exaggerating their past history. Indeed, it was a shallow bluff, but after they became awakened, they committed a lot of real gangster-like activities, such as making debts against low-level hunters for usury. As a condition for foregoing the interest, they throw them into a dungeon and have them pickaxe without pay. It would have been unimaginable now. But at that time, there was no hunter association. There were no hunter-related laws to prevent their evil deeds. While researching about them, Suho found out a strange fact. All of them, who were only bullies in the neighborhood, awakened almost at the same time. Even the place where it happened, at Gwanaksan. Does that make sense? Suho felt puzzled. A year ago, a dungeon break broke out in Gwanaksan. The porters who came to bury the bodies in Gwanaksan, ordered by the gangsters, accidentally, all awakened. And right away they created a group called the Hyena Guild. They took control of the Gwanaksan field, and were making money by mining mana stones. Until now, a year later. It's just too coincidental. Opinions were still divided as to the reason for those ordinary people to awaken their magical powers. There were talks about heredity. Some are saying that it was pure luck, like winning the lottery, or the chance of being struck by lightning. These guesses could have been all bullshit, or they could have been all right. For some it's heredity, for others it's luck. In the end, it was said that if the awakening came in any way, this ability would be obtained. After all, nothing quite makes sense anymore. It seemed that the Hyena Guild members awakened because they drank the blood of the canine clan. If so, it would be understandable that they awakened at the same time. The problem is that there is a separate canine clan that is said to have given that blood. Suho doesn't know if it's good luck or bad luck, but he thought he would soon find out who the canine clan really was, because right now, a tremendous sense of intimidation was emerging out of the gate. The breath of a terrifying beast. The vicious life inside it shook the air of Gwanaksan covered with blue mist. At that blatant and obvious presence, Suho turned to the gate as he was fighting the werewolves. "Young master, it is dangerous." Beru climbed onto Suho's shoulder and hurriedly whispered. Beru's expression changed. "We need to get away from here as soon as possible. With an opponent like this, young master can't handle it yet." It wasn't that easy. Skill, Extreme Command increases the abilities of werewolves by 50%. As a side effect of Skill Extreme Command, werewolves are cursed with madness. Suddenly, the werewolves that Suho was dealing with grew in size, and their movements became incredibly fast and powerful. Their madness started to put more pressure on Suho. "Do you think I'll let you run away?" "Die! Ah, kill that bastard!" "Young master." Suho's body began to accumulate wounds at a rapid rate due to the unprecedented situation. Skill, endurance level increased. Physical defense 20%, 40%. It's good that the skill level has risen, but that doesn't mean the battle has become easier. Tsk. I knew this would happen, so I warned you from the beginning. The closer you get to the sanctuary, the more dangerous it is. Rakan's sword was displeased. This energy apparently not only artifacts lived here, but also filthy hybrids. Hybrid? Suho, who managed to take down a werewolf, asked back. Yes, the great canine clan had numerous tribes following it. There was one of them that gave off this dirty aura. It was then! The roar of a bloody beast shook Gwanaksan. Right, that's him. Broki, the head of the hyena clan. Just then, a huge monster appeared outside the gate. Messy mane, mottled pattern, pointy teeth. A hyena the size of a house appeared. Extreme Commander Broki. A red name tag appeared above his head. That color meant one thing. That hyena is a monster with power that Suho could not dare to handle. The boss of the dungeon was alive. Suho shuddered at the pressure he felt from him. Apparently, the Hyena Guild had been intentionally hiding information about this place for a year. A field-type dungeon with boss mobs is a disaster in itself. If the other hunters knew this fact, they wouldn't have left this place alone until now. Is this the reason why the guild's name was Hyena? It was really odd. The hunters who had to hunt the monsters would rather be the servants of the monsters, catching humans and offering them as food. Suho, who grasped the situation, gritted his teeth. Seeing that, the giant hyena opened its mouth and yawned. He then recognized Rakan's sword in Suho's hand and giggled. I had been feeling this familiar energy. Was it Rakan's sword? Broki. What's it like? How come that the great beast monarch's remains is being held captive by a mere human? Rakan's sword felt humiliated. Even at this moment, he is caught in Suho's hand, and is swinging around like crazy. Of all the ones, why did it have to be Broki? It wasn't easy for you to become like that. Have you lost all your original strength? Isn't it just the same for both you and me as defeated soldiers who lost their monarch? It looks like the two of them aren't close. Even at this moment, Suho was still fighting fiercely against the werewolves. The problem is that even after killing all the wolves, that hyena still remains. No matter how much the defeated soldiers who lost their monarch lost their original strength and became weak, Suho was still much weaker than them. But I don't intend to die quietly. Even in this bleak situation, Suho kept his fierce eyes. You have killed a werewolf. Number of enemies to be defeated, 10. Number of enemies killed, 9. Only one werewolf left, but Broki didn't even bat an eye at the sight of his minions dying. Weak guys. Can't even stand a single human. Rather, he laughed at their deaths and spoke to the sword in Suho's hand. All right, Rakan's sword, join me to kill that human. Just in case you need a useful one, I'll be your new master. Bullshit. A mongrel like you dares to become my master? My master is only Rakan, Nim. Isn't Rakan already dead? What? How dare you? Don't be angry. If you're weak, you die. The one who survives is the strongest, just like me. Rakan's sword erupted in anger at Broki's mocking laugh. It shouted at Suho. Human! Kill him right now! Insert my blade into the throat of that bastard who insulted Rakan. You sound funny. Try whatever you want, such a weak. Before he could finish his words, Rakan's sword lunged from Suho's hand. The cold blade of the sword lodged in Broki's throat, who was laughing. In an instant, an airy voice escaped from Broki's mouth. Suho appeared in his widened field of vision. The man stood in a calm posture, looking at the beast. With his other hand, he grabbed the remaining one by the neck. Are you okay? Broki's eyes curved like crescent moons. You're interesting? Even with Rakan's sword stuck in his neck, he had a relaxed expression. But you can't kill me with just this kind of attack. I know, but I can still make it painful. Suho clenched his hand. Ruler's power. Twist. At that moment, Rakan's sword stuck in Broki's neck started spinning like a drill on the spot. Fiercely. The pain Broki felt in his neck startled him as he struggled. Faster. More fiercely. More. Deeper. Skill. Bladestorm has been used. This is... Rakan's sword whirled around like a storm and burrowed into Broki's body. The more he did, the more Broki struggled in pain. I'm enjoying this, bastard. Suho could hear the delight in Rakan's sword's voice. Is it really okay to do this? It was still absolutely impossible to kill Broki at the current level of Suho. No matter how much Broki became weaker than before, his regenerative power far exceeded Suho's attack power. But it was refreshing. Isn't Rakan already dead? How dare he! A servant who insults the death of his master, the great beast monarch. It was a sin that would not be forgiven, even if he was to be beheaded right away. But the reality is that he had to be content with just giving him that much pain. Eventually, you bastard, I'm going to kill. Suho received all of Broki's wrath. Broki, who had become a wounded beast, stomped his feet, spewing ferocious flesh. His strength is so great that Gwanaksan shook. A huge pressure like a rock hit Suho. It was then. I'm sorry, but thank you for protecting the last pride of a defeated soldier. The determined voice of Rakan's sword echoed. Broki's body, which was about to trample on Suho, temporarily stopped. Rakan's sword, you bastard! Rakan's sword, which forcibly controlled his movements inside his body, urgently shouted to Suho. Run away! I'll try to buy some time! However, Suho didn't seem to have any intention of backing down. Just then, the last werewolf died in Suho's hand. Number of enemies killed, 10. Then the messages followed. You have completed urgent quest. Defeat the enemies. Your level increased. The following rewards are prepared. Reward 1, ability points, +5. Reward 2, title, Wolf Slayer. Accept the reward. Title, Wolf Slayer has been acquired. Suho picks up a weapon used by werewolves from the floor. With 2 swords in each hand, Suho's eyes flashed like a hunter's. At that moment, title, Wolf Slayer. A title given to hunters who are good at catching wolves. All stats increase by 40% when facing beast-type monsters. The hunt begins. Suho's whole body was engulfed in intense contemplation. Chapter 17. Title, Wolf Slayer buff effect is activated. Suho's feet hit the ground. His new image emerged. Broki's face was then stained with astonishment. What? Something unbelievable happened. Suho's strength and speed, along with momentum, bursted out of his whole body. All of that changed in an instant. His new stats were due to leveling up by +1. Extra stat +5 from the quest reward. Furthermore, a title that boosts all stats by a whopping +40% against beast-type monsters. All of that synergy was concentrated on the Sword of Protection. Twin Swords, Bladestorm. Skill, Bladestorm has been used. Suho really became a storm? The 2 swords crossed and a strong wind blew. Skill, Twin Swords Levort 1 has been obtained. It was truly ruthless violence. A one-sided slaughter. Bastard. Broki tried to counterattack, but that too was nothing more than a desperate struggle. With that, the guard posts built by the Hyena Guild collapsed and were smashed. How dare. Even before Broki finished his words, a red light formed in a straight line from its wide open mouth. Rakan's sword was picked up by the ruler's power. Suho's hand grabbed the sword, and just like that, he took the beast down. You have defeated the Extreme Commander Broki. Finally, the huge beast collapsed. Your level increased. Your level increased. Suho was on the floor. You've done it. You killed it, young master. Beru shouted as if he had been waiting for this moment. Wow, did it actually work? A human defeating Broki? Beru laughed at that and replied, Didn't you know? The world is, after all, a weakling. The strong are devoured by the stronger. Young master will become stronger in the future as well. Oh, and young master? Can I have some of this? Beru licked his lips and pointed at Broki's corpse. Suho looked at it. Shadow release is possible on this target. Black smoke billowed above it. Confusion appeared in Suho's eyes. Shadow release is also possible on this beast? Then it's too bad I can't give it all to Beru now. Just one bite. Eat the rest after shadow release. All right. As soon as permission was given, Beru jumped happily. Broki's corpse was a good source of mana. It's just one bite. Beru's mouth opened wickedly. If it's just one bite, which part would I have to eat to get the word that I ate it well? It was right there. Brain, the weak meat. I really like it too. Beru muttered and dug into Broki's head. Suho released all the people who were tied up. I reported it to the Hunter Association, so a rescue team will come soon. Beasts are still roaming the mountain, so don't go anywhere else and stay here for a while. Thank you, thank you. They were covered in tears and snot while wailing loudly because of how long they had been tied up. Young master, these are all debtors to the Hyena Guild. They couldn't pay their debt, so they signed a waiver and were arrested. Beru, how do you know that? My skill is predation. I ate Broki's brain and stole some of his memories. You do all sorts of things. I am a very useful species in many ways. Beru was so proud, he stood up with both hands on his waist. Oh, by the way, when I looked at Broki's abilities, there was no such thing as the power to create werewolves by feeding them blood. What? So how did those guys... Suho's gaze turned to the werewolves lying dead on the floor. It was the strangest thing for me from the beginning, too, Rakan's sword said. The Hyena clan is just one of many tribes that followed the canine clan. Feeding blood to create minions is something only the canine clan can do. Then, somehow it seems that there is a real one besides Broki. Suho and Beru's eyes simultaneously looked at the gate where Broki came out. There's a real boss mob. Suho fixed his sword with determined eyes. Then Beru from the side shrugged and said, It wouldn't be a boss mob. Really? Suho gives him a puzzled expression. Yes, if Broki's memory is correct, it seems that the battle will no longer take place. Beru's expression was a bit bitter. You'll find out when you get inside. Suho entered the gate. He found a small and fragile creature. His expression stiffened. There was a blood-stained wolf cub lying helplessly, scruffy gray hair, roughly wrapped bandages. It was a very small wolf, only about a hand in size. Syringes from which blood was drawn were rolling around randomly. Seeing this, Rakan's sword trembled with fury.
Broki, how dare you, crazy bastard!
Could it be that the descendant of the clan was tied up and blood was drawn forcibly? Did you hear his anger? The wolf cub tied to the dog collar lifted its head helplessly. The unfocused eyes stared blankly at the empty space where Suho was standing. Then it sniffed with its little nose. A human stranger? There was a smell of blood on his clothes. A weak cry. After that, the wolf cub lowered his head again. There was not even a speck of will to live or hope left in the small body that had lost its strength. Broki, you crazy hybrid. Extremely angry, Rakan's sword cursed Broki, who was already dead and gone. Beru muttered calmly as he read Broki's memories. Shortly after losing the war against the Shadow Army, Broki left the battlefield before anyone else. In fact, he was more like a deserter than a defeated soldier. Broki's next move was really low. He hid in the sanctuary of the canine clan, which was considered the safest place, and found the clan's young wolf there. A wolf cub living there alone after all the adults went to war. That little one in the memory waggled his tail in delight when Broki entered the sanctuary. But seeing that, Broki came up with an idea. Yes, this is it. With the blood of this canine clan, I can create any number of protectors. I'll make them protect me. My own army. I'm creating a new tribe here that only serves me. You like it too, right? Ha ha ha. Broki smiled at the wolf cub, wagging its tail at him. After that, the sanctuary was torn into several pieces and wandered through the dimensional rift. One day, a hole connected to the earth appeared in front of Broki. He found a group of humans. Without hesitation, Broki drew the blood of this young wolf and fed it to those people. The next thing was something Suho knew very well. The protectors that were created became Broki's army under the name of the Hyena Guild. They hunted humans and sacrificed them to Broki. For one whole year, however, there was one problem. That was the reason Rakan's sword was furious. The power of the protectors is not eternal. 10 days at most. After that period, the power of blood engraved on the body of the protectors disappears and returns to its original state. That means, once every 10 days, blood was drawn from this guy and fed to the guild members. For an entire year. Broki, Broki! Suho picked up the limping wolf cub with one hand. He was a little surprised at how light it was. You're going to take it? Baru's eyes widened. This young wolf was a direct descendant, if not the direct descendant, of the canine monarch. If you keep him alive, he may grow up to be the second Fang monarch and threaten Earth again. You said we won anyway back then? That's right. Baru looked intently at the wolf cub in Suho's hand. Seeing how much blood had been drawn, he couldn't even breathe properly. Baru nodded. There is no need for us to antagonize each other in a situation where the monsters are attacking. Even though they were defeated in the war, the children who survived were innocent. It was rather amazing how it survived so far with its small and light body. However, Suho did not intend to take the wolf with such a dramatic reason. I think it will help me in some way later on. Also, if you die here and now, your last memory will be very unhappy, right? You were caught by the man you trusted, and you had your blood sucked for a whole year. Saying so, Suho took him into his arms. So let's just eat some food first and think about it after. Suho immediately returned home with the wolf cub. As for the Hyena Guild in Gwanaksan field, he reported it to the association and just put it behind. Civilian survivors will give much more specific testimonies than Suho anyway. More than that, the cub seemed like it would die right now. Baru, you said you're a healer. Can you heal something like this? Yeah, healer's recovery magic can only heal wounds. I can't do anything about lack of blood or hunger. Even recovery skills are not flexible. Alright then. Suho turned on the electric stove and put it in front of the wolf cub. Why, is it good because it's warm? The wolf cub looked quite perplexed. Its tail was curled up, and it was trembling, but its gaze was staring at the red light of the electric stove as if possessed. Well, you may be seeing fire for the first time in your life? Suho left it alone and immediately cooked seaweed soup. He let it cool and served it on a small plate. I know you are really enjoying yourself today. This is a recipe my mom used to make for me on my birthday. Suho showed condescension and held out seaweed soup in front of its short snout. Eat it. They say that seaweed soup is good when you don't have enough blood. The wolf cub's tail twitched when it smelled the seaweed soup. It's alright, try it. When Suho forcibly smeared seaweed soup on its snout, its tongue flicked instinctively. Huh? Oh, I didn't know. Even wolves have astonished looks like humans. The wolf cub puts its nose into the plate and licks the seaweed soup. Its hairless tail waggled helplessly. Rakan's sword, watching silently, muttered in low voice. Thanks for everything. He had mixed feelings. The reason they became like this in the first place was because they lost the war against the humans. But even though the war was over, the children who survived were innocent. They had to survive in the present and stand up to live in the future. And maybe this young wolf was the only survivor of the canine clan. As Baru warned, he was a petty monarch who would one day grow up to inherit the lineage of the Fang monarch. To think that the heir of the Shadow Monarch would lend a helping hand to such a child. What kind of irony is this? Do you like it? Suho smiles as he crouches down in front of the little wolf cub licking the warm soup. Rakan's sword, who's watching them, had no choice but to accept the fact that the war was over. Okay, you won. I will entrust all of our recruits to you. He sighed softly. The will of the greatest beast, the Fang monarch Rakan, dwelled in Suho. Pet, Fang Wolf level 1 has been obtained. Chapter 18. A pet? Suho made a puzzled expression when he saw the message that suddenly appeared. Pet? Baru asked the same. Before I knew it, a name tag appeared on the head of the wolf cub, who was licking seaweed soup. Unknown level 1. Fang Wolf. The system sent a message. You can give your pet a name. Please name your pet. Name my pet? When Suho looked at Baru, who had a troubled expression. There was nothing like this in the past. Which one, a pet? Yes. When His Majesty was leveling up, there was no such function. Baru explained. The level-up system currently applied to Suho was originally inherited from the Shadow Monarch, Sung Jinwoo, which he used in the past. Of course, it was improved to some extent from then, but that was to remove the malevolence that dwelled in the system. Malevolence? Yes. The purpose of the system at the time was to forcibly develop a human named Sung Jinwoo to use as a vessel for the Shadow Monarch. As soon as the goal was accomplished, the soul of named Sung Jinwoo was bound to disappear. Anyway, Sung Jinwoo ended up defying the purpose of the system and became the Shadow Monarch himself. He became a great being who no longer needed to level up. The person who inherited the system was Suho. But why is there a pet system now that didn't exist back then? Maybe it wasn't just now. It might have been there from the beginning. Beru squinted and stroked his chin. Besides, the designers of the level-up system were not us, but the shaman of the fantasy realm who dreamed of immortality. Shaman? Yes. He's the only one who knows exactly what functions are in the system. A long time ago, the shaman of the fantasy realm wished to escape from the fate of a finite creature and become an eternal existence. As a result, the level-up system was created after making an agreement with the angels of God. However, the purpose of the system at the time was only to complete the Shadow Monarch's vessel, so there was no need for a pet. Killing everyone and turning them into shadow soldiers was enough. But the purpose of Young Master's system now is completely different from that time. Suho made a puzzled expression. The purpose of the system was not to make me a Shadow Monarch? Yes, after all, Young Master can't become one, Beru said emphatically. There is only one Shadow Monarch in this world. In short, it means that only when Sung Jinwoo dies and the position of the monarch is empty, that Suho can get the chance to become the Shadow Monarch. But Sung Jinwoo was the ruler of death. He would never die. In fact, he is the one who is truly immortal. I know very well that my father is great. Suho was curious about another thing. Then what is the purpose of my system? Beru smiled faintly and looked into Suho's eyes. The existence of Sung Suho, born from the marriage of a Shadow Monarch and an ordinary human, was an unusual existence in all dimensions. So, even the designer who created the system would not have dared to guess what kind of existence Suho would grow into in the future. Would he simply live as the young master who inherited the skills of the Shadow Monarch as he does now? Or would he escape from his destiny and find his own way? Just like Sung Jinwoo did a long time ago. The system merely acts as a guide for young master, whichever path you take. If there is a function that did not exist before, it will surely be helpful. Beru was already looking at Suho's face, the face of a man who had long been alone and fought against everything in the world. He survived by constantly struggling in a place closer to death than anyone else in the world. In the end, even that death was won by his own power. The earth now was at peace, built through his noble sacrifice, but that peace has been threatened again by the outer gods. Status window. Suho, who was listening to Beru, suddenly opened the status window. Name Sung Suho. Level 16. Occupation? None. Title: Wolf Slayer. Stats: Muscle Strength 35. Body Strength 25. Agility 25. Intellect 25. Senses 25. Divisive Ability points 0. Skills: Passive Skills: Strength, LV2. Twin Swords, LV1. Active Skills: Ruler's Power, LV1. Shadow Fragment, LV1. Blade Storm, LV1. After hearing Beru's words, Suho also understood why his occupation was still labeled as None. There will probably never be anything written on that spot that says Shadow Monarch. Suho paid more attention to the other numbers below. This is my current level. Compared to the first level, when he was being chased by the Mistburns, the figures had gone up tremendously. There were already so many useful skills. But I am still weak. Suho was never overconfident with his own strength. It's not humility but a mere fact. He had already reached level 99 several times in his childhood dreams. Looking back on the sensations he felt at that time, his current power was too insignificant. If he didn't obtain the title of Wolf Slayer at the right time, he might not have defeated Broki. Suho also checked out new skills during the battle. Skill: Twin Swords LV1. Passive skill: No mana required. You can use dual swords more proficiently. 33% additional damage is applied when using two swords. This also applies to weapons other than swords. It's twin swords? Come to think of it, he had always been fighting with a weapon in both hands. An axe at first, and sword this time. Perhaps this skill was created based on his fighting method so far. In order to become stronger here, I will continue to use double swords. Suho's gaze stayed on Rakan's sword. Experience proved that the attack power of Rakan's sword was quite satisfactory. Once caught, the necks of the beasts of Gwanaksan were cut immediately. It seemed that he would need another sword, comparable to Rakan's sword, to balance his two hands. I need to earn some money. Hunter weapons are very expensive. Suho's gaze turned downward. And this little one? Before he knew it, the wolf cub had finished eating the seaweed soup and was sticking out of its stomach. He was still lying on the floor weakly, as if he had no energy to crawl. I will have to raise it for a while to use it later on. Please name your pet. A system message had been urging Suho from earlier. Suho decided on a name without hesitation. Gray because it has gray hair. Will you go with Gray? Yes. As soon as Suho finished speaking, the question mark on the wolf cub's head was erased and a new name was engraved. Gray level 1. Fang Wolf. Gray, who had officially become Suho's pet, raised his head with unfocused eyes and sniffed. He smelled Suho. Suho tapped the cub's nose with his fingertips and asked Rakan's sword. Hey, let me ask you one thing. What? How do I raise him to be useful? Is there anything special about raising that? Just let him eat well, sleep well, and play well. Don't say something so obvious. He is a descendant of the Fang monarch. Is there any special method? Eating is very important. The reason why he became so weak in the first place must be because Broki kept starving him, because he was afraid of this little one's growth. Rakan's sword raged again as he remembered what Broki had done. If the child of the canine clan had grown normally, there would have been no way he would have been held captive by someone like Broki. So, feed him consistently. If you give him enough sleep and let him play freely, he will grow into a much stronger predator than Broki. Really? What can I feed him? Right, he's a magical beast. It's even better if he's a monster that is self-hunting. Originally, children of the clan play hunting from the moment they are born. It's called hunting. It was absurd to make a guy who doesn't even have the strength to walk on his feet go hunting. They are worse than ants. Still, our ants can be left alone when they are larvae. Suho came up with a good idea upon hearing that. Who was it that raised Suho, who was a baby in the first place? Baru, you take care of him from now on. Out of nowhere? Yeah, you are the best nanny I know. I don't know what to do after hearing such compliments from young master. Baru twisted his body and was embarrassed. Let's go then. Where? Clueless Baru. Suho picked up Gray's and inserted the key to the shadow dungeon into his own shadow. Would you like to enter the shadow dungeon? Where else? Here, of course. Entering the shadow dungeon. After entering the shadow dungeon, Suho put Baru on Gray's back. From now on, you guys are a team. No matter how small Gray was, he was twice as big as Baru. Of course, even if you put the two together, they were still just a handful. This place can't be. Rakan's Fang, who had come along unintentionally, felt a strange feeling while looking around the shadow dungeon. Is this the world of the Shadow Monarch? To be exact, this is the world young master inherited. Of course, it was neglected so much that the wild monsters hid in it. Baru realized why Suho had brought them here, and his eyes lit up. Disquieting gazes were glaring at him from all over the dungeon. Oh, these are wild goblins. They are perfect opponents to train a pet. Baru smirked and tapped Gray's butt. Now wake up, descendant of the Fang Monarch. Show those ridiculous guys your ferocity. Gray seemed completely unwilling to fight. It was as if he didn't even have the will to get up. He crouched flat on the floor. Seeing that, Rakan's sword couldn't hide his anger. You have lost all of your innate fighting instincts due to your life in confinement. What should we do with this? Well then. Alright. Suho and Baru's reactions were resolute. Baru's skill is predation. He was able to absorb some of the power and memories of the monster he consumed. Arise, young warrior. Baru, the best nanny Suho knew, tapped Gray's butt once more. Skill. Harsh Command has been used by Baru. Skill. Harsh Command increases Gray's stats by 50%. As a side effect of Skill Harsh Command, Gray is cursed with madness. Gray's eyes, which had no motivation at all, suddenly changed. Baru laughed evilly and continued tapping Gray's butt. Good. Start with that momentum. Chapter 19. The internet has been buzzing for a while. Breaking news. The hidden reality of the Hyena Guild. Werewolves of Gwanaksan. Survivors who almost became sacrificial lambs. The survivors of Gwanaksan Field, rescued by Suho, revealed everything they had experienced to the media, and the public was shocked. Crazy, what was that? They caught their own kind human and sacrificed them? How could they do that? Hunters were living as slaves of demons. Aren't they a traitor to humanity at this level? Citizens reacted extremely to the fact that the same humans were hunting humans and feeding them to those beasts. Along with them, other guilds that had been involved with the Hyena Guild were also criticized. Wasn't the Reaper Guild behind the Hyena Guild? Yep, that's right. Even if they deny it now, everyone in the industry knows otherwise. Where did that huge capital come from, when the Hyena Guild were milking from low-level hunters' loan in the first place? I heard they were originally neighborhood gangsters. 100% sure a certain guild gave them that money. That guild might be very anxious now. Are we going to keep looking at all this nonsense? Limtegu, the guild leader of the Reaper Guild, hit his fist hard with an angry face. The force had split the marble desk in two, but no one in the conference room cared about it. I'm sorry. We are also responding with urgency, but as you can see, the public opinion is too strong. Planning director. A cold voice held the planning director's breath. Do you think I hired you to make that excuse? To gather in this room and rely on the comments? I'm sorry. Lim Tegu leaned back in his chair and let out a long sigh. Let me ask you one thing. How did our image end up like this? Until last year, everything was good, right? In response to Lim Tegu's question, the executives only looked at each other with embarrassed expressions. In the previous year, Reaper Guild was on the rise as Korea's #1 guild in name and reality. The reason was Lim Taegyu, the guild leader. It was thanks to him being one of the few S-class hunters in Korea, despite being middle-aged. There was one more person. Aside from Lim Taegyu, there was one more S-class hunter in the Reaper Guild. It was only up until last year. That's right, sir. When Vice President Baek Yoon-ho went on his own last year, the head of the planning office hurriedly shut the subordinate's mouth. Such a tactless person. Who wouldn't know that and ask? S-class hunter Baek Yoon-ho. He was the person who established the Baeko Guild last year, after becoming independent from the guild he was previously in. The moment he left, an S-class hunter, the power of the Reaper Guild was virtually cut in half. But that wasn't the real problem. The thing is, everyone in the room knew the underlying reason. They just couldn't speak about it. If they do, their throats would be cut in half. After Baek Yoon-ho left, Lim Taegyu brought an A-class hunter from outside and put him in the vice president position in a fit of anger. Judging from the fact that he was a close acquaintance with Lim Taegyu even before the cataclysm, he was a so-called paratrooper. Of course, the executives of the Reaper Guild strongly objected to that decision, because an A-class hunter couldn't take the place of an S-class hunter. The A-class hunter, Lee Min-song he brought, was a beginner who had never entered a dungeon. However, Lim Taegyu did not bring Lee Min-song for no solid reason. Lee Min-song just had a lot of money. He was already a businessman with a lot of money, born with a golden spoon, even before awakening. When he was younger, he was a movie actor who was so popular that he made a name for himself as an Asian superstar. Regardless of dungeons or hunter things, Lee Min-song's life has been that of a rich man who has only walked the glamorous road from the time he was born. Lim Taegyu's real purpose? Money. If power is weak, why not buy an expensive weapon through an increase in financial power? In fact, Lee Min-song was more of a sponsor with strong financial power, rather than a vice president. The plan worked to some degree. After Lee Min-song became the vice president, the guild members started to get more and more expensive and flashy equipment. But ironically, since then the guild's image has deteriorated. The head of the planning office had no choice but to press down on what he wanted to say and endure it. Just then, the door of the conference room opened, and Vice President Lee Min-song in question entered. Hey, sorry for being late. Sorry, there was so much traffic. Lee Min-song laughed and joked even though he was an hour late for the meeting. As a handsome and famous actor when he was young, his face was covered with a pitiful act. Lim Taegyu's cold eyes glared at Lee Min-song. Vice President Lee Min-song. Ooh, what is this? Did you break the table? Your strength is great. Vice President Lee Min-song. Hey, Secretary Kim, change this table to something better sometime today, okay? Hey, Lee Min-song. Lim Taegyu couldn't hold his anger and shouted. The smile on Lee Min-song's face disappeared. Hey! Lee Min-song's head turned, and he looked at Lim Taegyu with a raging gaze. Doesn't that title sound a little rude? Lim Taegyu ignored the words and asked, glaring at Lee Min-song. Vice President Lee Min-song, why are you late for the meeting? I told you there was a traffic jam. Aren't you late because you're taking care of the mess with Hyena Guild? At those words, Lee Min-song's brow flinched. However, he soon smirked. What are you talking about again? What hyena? The one you can see at the zoo? Don't change the topic, Min-song. The mask was removed from Lee Min-song's face. I'm not liking your tone. Even in the face of wrath with Lim Taegyu, an S-class hunter, Min-song only has a mockery look on his face. When did our Taegyu grow up like this? The bastard who used to be my driver? At those words, anger welled up in Lim Taegyu's eyes. However, Lee Min-song did not care and rather approached him. He pulled Taegyu's collar, then he glanced up and down at him with a scanty glance. Do you really not know what people do? How did you get lucky enough to wake up as an S-class? So you could become arrogant in only 2 years? Was it like this with the old owner as well? Lee Min-song? Oops! Come to think of it, you weren't the previous owner. Our Taegyu, don't you still have 2 years left on your driver's contract? Lee Min-song, do not test my patience. Why? You're going to kill me? Oh wow, that's scary. The dog is trying to bite its owner? I gave money to a guild that was going down, but you don't even know how to return the favor. If a person could be killed with a gaze, everyone in the conference room might have already died. Please go outside and fight. The battle of nerves between the two people, who had a complicated relationship, made it impossible for the executives and staff to even breathe properly. Fortunately, Lim Taegu was not hot-tempered enough to cloud his mind with anger. Let's stop this. You were going to do something, weren't you? Vice President Lee Min-song. I already know that you have had some kind of commission with the Hyena Guild. Sooner or later, the association will also know about it. Association? Lee Min-song's expression hardened. Lim Taegu let out a deep sigh. Yes. So tell me what the hell you were doing behind our backs. We have to know so we can clean it up somehow. Clean up? Lee Min-song rubbed his chin and was lost in thoughts. He didn't want to be specific. He couldn't do it either. In the end, Lee Min-song smiled and shrugged. Well, nothing special. Just running light errands and playing with money. Is that really all? Yes, even if the association decides I can solve it on my own, so don't worry. I hope that is true, or else, what? The hunter law is so weak, so there won't be any problems if I mobilize my lawyers. The law? The hunter law is definitely out of date. Lim Taegu pondered on those words. It was natural. It has only been 2 years since the cataclysm occurred. Even now, the association was working hard to pass hunter-related legislation, but there were still holes in it. That's why guys like Hyena Guild were still able to play to their heart's content. Satisfied now. If you don't have anything more to say, I'm leaving. Lee Min-song turns around and leaves the conference room without even listening to the answer. Behind him, Lim Taegu issued the last warning. Vice President Lee Min-song, it would be better not to be overconfident. Even if the law is weak, the president of the association is never an easy person. The conference room door was slammed shut. Lim Taegu shook his head and sat back in his chair. It was only then that the employees were able to breathe out. Lee Min-song came out with a relaxed gait. His expression was contorted like that of a demon. A bastard who doesn't even know the subject dares question me? He didn't show it. But in fact, his whole body was drenched in cold sweat from Lim Taegyu's killing gazes. More than the fear he has, he couldn't tolerate getting his pride stepped on. I only got in because he begged me to be the vice president, but he treats me like a servant? Lim Taegu, how dare you? But he had no right to express this anger. After all, Taegu was an S-class hunter, and he was only an A-class. He couldn't help but control his anger. Hyena Guild? No. The guy who destroyed the Hyena Guild. Lee Min-song called someone with a scary look on his face. Yes, it is me. Did you figure out his identity? No, Vice President. I've been trying to find out about him from all the survivors. A voice without confidence came from the other side of the phone. None of the survivors knows what he looks like. What, they don't know what he looked like? How come? The hunter was covering his face with a mask and hood the whole time. What is noteworthy is that he used twin swords, and it is said that he picked up the sword used by werewolves and used it. You find out more about who that bastard is and bring him to me. Yes, sir, well understood. Lee Min-song couldn't hold back his anger and threw his phone on the floor. Meanwhile, at that time, Suho was spending a peaceful time in the Shadow Dungeon. Of course, only Suho is at peace. Gray, the wolf cub of the canine clan, was about to die. Oh, that's great. Finally, our wolfie hunted a goblin alone, although the opponent is of course a baby goblin. At Beru's praise, the palm-sized wolf cub howled sadly. No, howled ferociously. The way he stepped on the young goblin's corpse with his paws looked extremely pitiful. No. Brave. Now eat. A true hunter eats all his prey without leaving any. Open your mouth wide and chew. Gray showed signs of exhaustion, but couldn't disobey the harsh commands of Assistant Professor Beru. As he was told to do so, he opened his mouth wide and bit the goblin he hunted. The level of Pet Gray increased. A message arrived in front of Suho. Oh, he also levels up? Didn't I tell you? If you let him eat, sleep, and play, he'd grow up. I know he'd grow up, but I thought I was the only one leveling up. Another message arrived. Pet Gray offers 50% of its experience as a sacrifice to its owner. What? Suho and Beru looked at each other. They turned their gazes to look at Gray, who was lying flat on the floor. Well, young master, how could you steal this little one's power? No, Suddenly, a feeling of guilt came flooding in. Chapter 20. I get it now. Beru realized. The pet system seems to be a kind of prisoner of war. The Shadow Fragment skill was the ability to release shadow soldiers from the corpses of enemies. On the other hand, the pet system allows enslaving enemies without killing them. The difference between the two was the presence of growth. If you kill Wolfie right now and release him as a shadow soldier, he will be a wolf cub forever. Gray's situation was different from Beru, who was temporarily downsized due to lack of mana. The moment he becomes a shadow soldier, he would be released from his current weak and young form. Of course, as the level of young master rises, Wolfie will be affected to some extent as well. But the limit will be clear. On the other hand, if you let them live like this, he'll keep on getting bigger and later might become a huge wolf like Broki. Yes, by that time he will be of help to young master. Really? Hearing that it would help him, Suho smiled and looked at Gray. Gray level 2. Fang Wolf. As soon as the madness from skill harsh command disappeared, Gray returned to being a worthless one-day-old cub. At first, it seemed like he would die right away, but thanks to the level up, his condition looked much better. However, the image of him crouching in the corner and turning his gaze in a different direction seemed to be unfamiliar with Suho. Suho sighed. How long will it take until I can use him? He's insignificant right now, but wouldn't he be helpful if he was bigger? He will earn experience on his own. It's like an automatic hunting game? The problem was that the game was at the level of a mini-game at the moment. Alright, then let's keep raising Gray here. I agree. Since he had to be fed 3 meals a day anyway, an environment like this would be perfect. Huh? Why? What? Aren't we on the same side now? Suho snatched the handle and said, Okay, then should I slowly level up too? It wasn't just Gray who entered the Shadow Dungeon. Even after finishing the 4-hour survival quest the other day, the Shadow Dungeon was still infested with wild goblins. Even if there was no quest, experience would be gained as Suho hunts. Last time I was too weak to run away, but things are very different now. It was also rewarding to level up during that time. Most of their name tags had turned white. Suho was confident that he could deal with them no matter how many they were. However, he had no intention of looking for each one of them hiding in the dark. Inventory. Suho took out an item from his inventory that the goblins had dropped during the last survival quest. Beru tilted his head. Young master, what is that? This? Suho smiled. Item, horn. Type, instrument. The horn used by the goblin commander to summon his men. It's an item I've already obtained, so shouldn't I use it? Suho put the horn in his mouth and blew vigorously. Use item horn to call nearby goblins. That moment, the black and white world became noisy. The goblins hiding in the darkness began to jump out at the same time. They were angry at the fact that the one who summoned them was a human. Suho fiercely showed his teeth as he watched the goblins attacking him from all sides. Beru. Yep. Now, it's your turn to eat. Beru smirked with greedy eyes at those words. The mana stone was good, but eating the magical beast directly was much more efficient to recharge his mana. Right then. Daily quest, cleaning the shadow dungeon has arrived. Huh? A message suddenly appeared in front of Suho's eyes. Daily quest, cleaning the shadow dungeon. 100 goblins, incomplete, 0-100. 10 goblin commanders, incomplete, 0-10. 1 goblin main commander, incomplete, 0-1. A daily quest? Suho's eyes widened. He was going to hunt anyway, but a timely quest just arrived. This is great. Since it's a quest, there will of course be a reward. For a daily quest, it meant that the reward would be given every day. Anyway, the system seems to want to make this place completely the territory of young master. It's the system my father used. Suho murmured with a longing expression. I remember when I was little I used to shine my dad's shoes and get pocket money. Okay, let's see how much pocket money he will give me this time. Suho swung his sword. Skill, Bladestorm has been used. A violent storm raged. After a while, you have killed a goblin archer. 100 goblins, incomplete, 89-100. Suho was slaughtering goblins like a madman with 2 swords, but he wasn't fighting alone like before. Suho selected only the largest goblin commanders among the goblins and used them as shadow soldiers. 7 of them. Number of shadows that can be released, 7-7. It was thanks to his intellect stat rising after catching Broki. However, compared to the past, Suho was still feeling regret, despite the changes that could be called great development. At times like this, it's a pity that the shadow soldiers disappear on their own over time. You mentioned that my father said he also had a shadow storage skill, right? Yes, that's right. His Majesty has commanded eternal soldiers. Can I have it later too? I don't know that much. Suho licked his lips. Anyway, despite this, no notice of level up has been up yet. As the battle becomes easy, the experience comes in less. This is practically like a morning exercise. It would still be a problem even if the daily quest was too difficult. He would be stressed fighting for his life every day. But, isn't it worth it? Suho took out the horn again. Use item horn to call nearby goblins. Then, immediately, from the darkness a new army of goblins began to emerge. Beru opened his eyes wide and looked at Suho. Young master, aren't you almost done with the daily quest? Who cares? We have a lot of time today anyway, so let's go on until we level up. Young master is born to be a soldier ant. Is that a compliment? Suho smirked and was surrounded by the new goblins. After which, daily quest, cleaning the shadow dungeon. 100 goblins, complete, 107, 100. 10 goblin commanders, complete, 1010. 1 goblin main commander, complete, 11. You have completed daily quest, cleaning the shadow dungeon. The completion reward has arrived. Do you want to check the reward? Yes or no? Yeah. Suho checked the quest window and opened his eyes wide. Ha didn't check the message about the reward as he was frantically fighting with the goblins. But he found something strange. 100 goblins complete, 107, 100. Why does the record keep accumulating even though I have reached the target? For a moment, Suho's eyes glimmered. Is this really a coincidence? Suho cut the head of the goblin, who was just about to attack. You have killed a goblin commander. 10 goblin commanders done, 1110. Again! Likewise, the other counts continued to accumulate. He was puzzled. Up until how much would it count? Suho started hunting the goblins with more enthusiasm than before. He eventually leveled up in the middle, but he did not stop hunting. As a result, 100 goblins complete, 200, 100. 10 goblin commanders complete, 2010. 1 goblin main commander complete, 11. When it reached exactly twice the target number, no more counts were accumulated beyond that. There's something about this. Suho's curiosity had now turned to conviction. 1 goblin main commander done, 1-1. Now all that remains is the main commander. Killing that guy doubles everything. Then what will happen? He wanted to see for himself. Catch him so he can't escape! At Suho's command, the shadow goblins rushed at the same time and seized the limbs of the large goblin commander. It struggled a lot. Suho ran and cut off its head. Right then, you have completed hidden quest, cleaning the shadow dungeon. The completion reward has arrived. Do you want to check the reward? Yes or no? Hidden quest. The moment all counts doubled, the type of quest changed. Suho was delighted that his intuition was correct. After killing the main commander, there were no goblins attacking anymore, so he decided to check the reward right away. Check the reward. The following rewards were prepared. Reward 1, State Recovery. Reward 2, Ability Points plus 3. Hidden Reward 3, 1, Blessed Random Box, select. 2, Cursed Random Box, select. Are you sure you will accept all? There are 3 rewards? He decided to check the first reward first. He leveled up in the middle, but after fighting 200 goblins, his body was completely exhausted. Accept the first reward. At that moment, Suho's whole body was enveloped in a faint blue aura. Just like when leveling up, his conditions were back to normal and everything was replenished. Oh, this is good. The moment he felt it, he realized how to use this reward in the future. He would save this reward and use it in a timely manner so he won't have to wait vaguely to level up when he's in the middle of a battle. Accept the second reward. The second reward, Ability Point plus 3, was also very good. He tried it today, but the higher the level, the more difficult it was to level up. But since this was a daily quest reward, he thought that from now on, he could become stronger every day this way. And finally, only the reward for the hidden quest remains. Hidden Reward 3, 1, Blessed Random Box, select. 2, Cursed Random Box, select. Options were laid in front of Suho.